Hello, welcome to the Masterlete podcast. I'm Wendy Lutter, and I have the exciting job today of interviewing Jon Pearce. Jon is the founder and the brainchild behind Masterlete. We're going to talk about all sorts of things. How to get the inspiration to do this? What does it mean to be a Masterlete? What is all this talk about healthspan and why should we care? And how do we join this community? We're going to talk about all these things, and I'm excited for you to join us and hear all about how this started and how you can be a part of the community. So today we are here with the founder of Masterlete, Jon Pearce. And
Howdy.
Howdy. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. You ready to talk all the things Masterlete?
I am. I'm very ready.
All right. Awesome. So let's start by talking about your fitness journey. How did you even get into the wellness fitness space?
Well, I've always been a runner, so I like to joke that I came into the world running, so I was born breech. And my mom didn't appreciate that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I've always been a very active person, never a great athlete, but, just good enough to kind of, kick it around playing baseball and basketball. Basketball was my love. I grew up in Kansas, and, you have the KU basketball team is just phenomenal. But anyway, so my fitness journey that I think is very pertinent to Masterlete started kind of in my mid-30s. And I had gone through some pretty transformative changes as a person, dealing with some childhood trauma and getting help around that. And what I found was that running and fitness was very much just like the cornerstone of being healthy.
So tell me more about that. What about it felt like it was that transformational cornerstone? What did it make you feel?
Yeah, it was a couple things. One was just part of my journey was having trauma as a kid. And when you have really significant trauma, what happens is that you get this sort of balloon. You don't know what to do with emotions, right? And you fill it with a whole bunch of stuff. And anxiety, addiction, whatever. Like, you find subversive ways to deal with that. And what I found out was, for me, running, and in particular, pretty intense running, helped just kind of like deflate that balloon. Mm-hmm. And that made me a more stable person. That made me a better person. And all the other positive things that come with, good fitness and exercise, the physiological, the metabolic things that come with it. And so it was this sort of self-reinforcing. As I went through therapy and had help, with the trauma, I reinforced it with exercise. And I could see this positive feedback loop. And I was like, that's what I want. And so when I turned 40, I set a goal. It was a 30-year goal, ambitious. And I said I want to run a 4-something mile in my 40s, a 5 in my 50s, and a 6 in my 60s.
That's pretty ambitious.
So yeah,
that's quite a goal.
I'm still working on the sub 5 mile.
How many years you got left?
I got 4 years left.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
But that set me on this journey, right? And it set me down to say, like, that was my goal. That was my purpose. That was my constraint. And I had to change my life to fit that, right? You're not going to get to that level of fitness for me. I mean, that's a big goal. I'm not going to get there if I don't make changes in how I sleep, right? My relationship with alcohol. How do I think about fuel? All the things that we are going to talk about in healthspan, I sort of like backed into. Mm-hmm. And what I found was that by focusing on those, doing those activities, I got closer and closer to the person that I wanted to be, the father I wanted to be, the husband I wanted to be, the businessman that I wanted to be. And that was really, really, really powerful for me.
I want to go back to something that you said. You mentioned purpose, and it sounded like on that journey, there was all these things that were helping you get better and heal and move forward. And that running was really a key to it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about where purpose fits in with being an athlete and wellness, and we'll get to it in a minute, but Masterlete, what about purpose do you think makes a difference?
It makes all the difference, right? So when we think of healthspan, right, it's injecting the life into the years that I have largely through fitness. So how do you define what that is? And it comes with a goal and purpose. And that's really the starting point. For me, at the darkest moments that I had as I was going through that journey, it was love myself and love my son. It was before I met my now wife, but that was the purpose. And that was clarifying, right? And if you can do that, and then it moved into more advanced things, right? And now it's really about being the best dad, being the best husband, being the best businessman that I can through fitness, right? And that purpose and the goals that I've set out there, that forces me to make decisions differently. And I realize like what I'm trying to do isn't what 99% of the people are doing, right? And so you have to make different decisions. So I think purpose and goal, certainly for me, and then reflected in Masterlete, is the starting point. What are you optimizing for? That's what Howard will talk about, Dr. Lux, and how do we think about making changes in your life that support that? And that's really powerful. Living with purpose is the starting point in having that health span, and it's very central to what we'll do here at Masterlete.
Absolutely. It feels like if you don't have purpose, you don't have
it's hard.
Anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're figuring out, well, I'm doing this because it is part of my purpose, and purpose can be something defined differently by every person,
Yep.
but that piece of it feels really important and significant to the Masterlete.
Totally.
So tell me what's Masterlete? Where'd that come from? What is it? Why should we care about it? What's going on?
So Masterlete. So first of all, I think, I kind of backed into it again. I started my journey as a personal step, and it was all about my goals and the whatnot. And what I realized is when I'm out running, when I'm out doing these things, there are a lot of other me's, right? There are people like you and others that are out there that have that mindset that's like, listen, I know I'm getting older, but you know what? I really, really like living my best life by being active, by thinking about these things. And I, for myself, I was like, how do I train in my 40s? There's like nothing out there, right? The research is all for 20-year-olds, Olympic athletes, younger people, or like really, really advanced age and disease, right? Mm-hmm. And there's this huge chasm that's out there on how are you actively aging? Where's the research? Where are the supports? Like, who's paying attention to me? Like, I've done well in my career. I have money to spend. I have things that I want to do, and nobody is there to grab it. And the entrepreneur in me is like, wait a second. If there are a lot of me's, there's an unmet market need. Maybe there's something out there. And yeah.
So when you were out there searching, what were some of the things that you were not finding that you were looking for?
One was community. I'm an introvert by nature, but I can talk all day long about Masterlete. Like we can sit and we can jam on food and we can talk about workout plans. And I found myself really, really hungry. And when I would find the people that I could connect with, it was like, oh my gosh, let's just talk.
Time to nerd out. Tell me about this.
Right, yeah.
What shoes are you wearing?
Exactly.
What are you eating? How's sleep going for you? Yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, I found my person. I found my people.
Yes, my people. And so that community was something that I definitely wanted. And, if you've been in team sports like track or football or others, you understand that camaraderie, right? And there's two events, right? I mean, when you don't have that at an advanced stage, in which we are sort of in our 40s and 50s here, when you don't have that, listen, we're going to be really candid about like all this stuff, right? I mean, we are biologically on the other end of that, and that's great. And we're unapologetic, and we're doing things that are truly resetting the expectations for what we can do. Okay, so community is something that I really, really wanted. The second thing that I wanted was some way to kind of like have a tribe. Like I wanted to be able to recognize you and others and other Masterletes in the world. And it was really hard to do that. Like, where are these people with this mindset? And it's not about the podium, right?
No.
It's not about first place finish. It's not even about like just doing the traditional. It's like you have this mentality and approach towards life. And I want to know who you are. I want you to know who I am. And let's figure out a way that we can kind of come together. The other thing that I really, really wanted, and I was fortunate to find a really good coach, was that just personal, right? Someone who themselves was a Masterlete, like they were advanced in their own training and understanding. How do you do things differently? But not again from a frailty, like I'm old and treat me like, with kid gloves, like, no, push me. Like, how do you know how to push me and help me get to my goals, even though I'm not a 20-year-old?
With understanding where we've been.
Exactly.
What it means to have knees that have been running for 40 years, in my case, what it means to have something that doesn't, a gait that might be different, but still feeling like I want to do this. Yeah,
exactly.
Definitely.
And so, being able to find the right kind of coaching and personalization. And then the other side of it was the last little kind of piece that I really looked for was where is a place that I can come to, and I'm a tech guy, right? And I think about where are the platforms that I can go to that will help me measure and track this over time and maybe extract insights that I can't even find myself. And there's nothing out there, right? There are dabbles in all of it, but bringing that together, I think that's the essence of Masterlete. And that's what we're building here. We're building this community, this vibrant community of people that share this mindset. And we're at different stages in life, different ages. We do different activities. We live in different parts of the world. But we can come together around our stories, around our shared mentality. So the community is one big part of it. The second is the brand, right? I want the tribe. Like, I want to be able to be proud about it. I want to be able to promote it. And I want people to pay attention to us. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. The other part is, how do we connect with the ecosystem to support us? So a big part of it is making sure that we can find and help connect to the right professionals and services to support Masterlete. So the ecosystem is a third piece. And then behind it all will be this technology, this really cool operating system that's focused purely on driving healthspan. And we'll use all the same cool tools that Facebook and TikTok and others have, but instead of driving clicks, we're going to drive healthspan. So ultimately, at the end of the day, when we talk about Masterlete, being a Masterlete is a mindset, but Masterlete as a business is building and creating that community, fostering that ecosystem, really, really driving awareness, right, and creating that tribe, and then finally building the technology to help support us.
I want to go back to what you said about healthspan.
Okay.
That word is getting thrown around all over the place. Yeah. And how does that relate to Masterlete, and why is it so key? And how does it differ from longevity? What's the difference between healthspan and how long you live?
So think of longevity as just a measurement. You're born and then you die. It is it is years, right? And in a nerdy way, it's an indeterminate function. So people try to sell longevity. You can't sell longevity because by the time you die, you're dead, right? So it's sort of this, we did not go after that longevity. That was a very intentional decision, right? Healthspan, though, is something that every human has because I define what it means. You define what it means. And therein lies the opportunity and the challenge. So we define healthspan in the most simple terms of injecting the life into the years that you have through fitness or other things, right? So ultimately, once you start with that purpose and say, here's what a meaningful life is for me, then we can say, all right, let's go support that. And honestly, the playbook is out there, right? It's supported through nutrition or fuel, good sleep, moving a lot, maintaining your strength, socializing, right, and having that sense of purpose. Like, there are just some basic components that go into supporting and driving that health span. And so that's very, very central in everything that we do at Masterlete is in support of that. And I love the purity of that. And that to me, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's been in healthcare for 25 years now, focusing is one of the most essential things. Driving with intent in everything that we do to make that health span as rich and powerful for everybody is something that will make us very successful.
And we all know, I'm sure, of folks who are 80 who have a long, or 85 who have a long lifespan. Yeah. And then you see people who are also 85 who have this health span where they're vibrant, they're moving, versus that lifespan sitting on the couch and not being able to have all those things like community and purpose. And it seems like that's really the differentiator. It's not about the years per se and making sure that you have longer years, because we know we all have an expiration date. It's like, how do we get the most out of those years that we have is really health span.
Yes. And again, the formula is out there, but executing against it is hard, right? Life is hard, aging is hard. And again, that's where bringing all of those together really is the key for us. And being able to have community, have these conversations. You and I will be healthier when we get together and we talk about it. I mean, that's the beauty of it. When we get together and talk about this, we both increase our health span and we get better about it. So I think that's absolutely essential. And again, I guess at the end of the day, when you think about health span as an objective that we're trying to help drive within Masterlete, the flip side is you still have to do the work.
Yeah.
right?
Dang it. Really?
And it's kind of like, yeah, we can offer this and we can present it out there. But that's important to me. There's a lot of people selling snake oil,
Absolutely.
and that's not what we're doing. Right. We will create the infrastructure. We will create the opportunity for community and ecosystem and technology. But at the end of the day, it's still my journey. It's still your journey. Right. And we are here to help maximize that.
Tell me a little bit more about the Masterlete. We both are wearing it and you pointed to it.
Yep.
What is it? What's going on there with the infinity thing? Why should we care about that?
So it represents an unbounded mindset, and you'll hear that phrase a lot. So we'll use unbounded community, unbounded gear. But the infinity sign is really two things. One, obviously what we're doing is we're redefining aging and actively aging. Again, we're kind of biological freaks. I say that in the best way possible, right? We're doing things at our ages that we've never done before. And that's breaking down boundaries. It's breaking down barriers, social barriers, performance barriers, a whole bunch of different things. And you have to have that mindset. And that's really important. One of abundance, I've got enough and I can go do that. The other side, and this is important, I think, for a lot of Masterletes, is we're also modeling for the next generation, right? And so being able to go out and say, listen, here's how I'm living my life. And I want my son to look at this and say, my dad lived well. And I want other people to be able to say that. So that's the infinity, right? It's this unbounded where we're living our best lives, we're driving healthspan, and then that's coming back and reflecting for the generations to come. And I do think with modern medicine and the tools that we have available, this is really important, and that's important as a legacy for me. And I know for you and others that do it is you want the next generation to have someone to look forward to.
Right, because there's not a lot out there for us to look at and so that's sort of that unboundedness of, okay, we're trying this, we got to figure it out, we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
So who is Masterlete for?
Honestly, Masterlete's for anybody who really wants to inject that life into their years.
Okay, good, because I was thinking about, okay, is it just for people who can run a 5-minute mile?
No,
because
not at all.
That's not going to.
Then I couldn't be there.
There's a lot of us who couldn't do that.
I exclude myself on that one.
So tell me a little bit more about that. So it's for people who are looking. How do I live better? How do I figure out with fitness, with sleep? Where's a place I can go to get some of that community?
Exactly. Yep. And I think, and we've talked about this, right? Is the name itself sort of exclusionary? And I think where I've landed on it is what I want is something that is clearly identified in the market as that mindset. And I think there's something nice about aspirational to say, yes, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be a little bit different than others. But it's absolutely open for everybody. If you do yoga, if you're walking, right? Movement doesn't have to be these big, grandiose things. It's moving on a regular basis, right? Howard talks about exercise snacks, right? It again gets back to that mentality. And whether or not your mentality is something that you're sustaining for the last 20 years, or one you're like, I would like to get into this. Mm-hmm. We are the place for you. You are a Masterlete. And the beautiful thing is by joining that community again and coming into the resources, we can take the highest, quote, performing Masterletes, and we can take the most new people that are starting their journey. And I love that. And I want that to be accessible, inclusive for everybody in that spectrum.
So tell us a little bit about, you've mentioned Howard a couple times. Tell us a little bit about who is Howard and who are some of the other experts that are joining the Masterlete team?
Yeah, so Howard is our chief medical officer, and Howard is someone that I have learned a tremendous amount from. So he has been talking about, so I come at it from my own journey, right? Howard's come at it from a clinical perspective and really looked at it and become a world expert in longevity and health span. And he has just a beautiful way of taking and framing in these very sort of complex concepts and making it accessible for people. And it's not just the content from a physician. He's a physician, orthopedic surgeon out in New York. So he's got the clinical background, but he also brings a real sense of clarity, right? He's able to pierce through the noise. And that's a big part of what we want to bring here for Masterlete. Like, rather than having article after article after article, we really want to take the time and say, what is most relevant for the Masterletes? What are the experts saying? What does the evidence say, right? And where it's clear, we want to be clear on that. And where there are divergence, we want to have those conversations, right? And Howard does a really, really nice job through his career and being able to distill that. So we've really pulled him, his content, his know-how in as a framework for Masterlete.
Which is fantastic, because one of the things that I hear from a lot of Masterletes out there is that they're looking for something that's trustworthy and credible. And with so much out there, that it's either people are trying to sell something, or they don't have a way to understand where the source is. And so it sounds like with all of Howard's expertise, he really does bring some of that credibility from the medical field of having been out there for years and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, and the nice thing is he's seen so many, right? He's seen the fads, he's seen the gimmicks, and again, there isn't omniscience in this. It is a dynamic space, and that's also the opportunity. But with it comes that clarity, and I think one of the things that will differentiate Masterlete longer term for us is the ability to continue to have that focus on healthspan. You mentioned like trying to sell you things. Like, we're not trying to sell you supplements. Like, that's not our gig. We are here to provide credible evidence, a really robust community, like the things that we're talking about, to increase your health span. And that's our business model. And we're going to stay really true to that, because I think that's the defensible place to be. That's what I want, right? I think that's what you want. That's what we hear from the Masterletes that we're talking to. And so we're going to stay really true to that.
So we've talked a lot about the big picture, cool stuff theoretically. How does it actually work? Let's say I want to sign up. What do I do, and what am I going to get, and what does it mean?
Right. So this is my challenging. So go from the theoretical into practical. So it's very simple. So we offer two ways to become a Masterlete. One is the unbounded sort of base camp subscription. So this gets you access to the community. You pay an annual fee, and it gets you into the platform. You can meet your people. You can connect with Masterlete certified coaches. And you get to the Unbounded Gear program, which we'll talk a little bit more about. And then we also offer on top of that the Unbounded Apex. And this is where we bundle the most essential lab testing in addition to the sort of the base camp feature.
Okay, so that's really cool, because we go out there, and I have seen so many different websites and heard people talk and podcasts about, okay, you got to get these labs, and nobody knows where to go to get them or what labs to get. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Tell
it's
us
super
more.
Easy. Yeah, exactly. So we've curated it, again, back through Howard and the years of experience to have the most essential sort of comprehensive labs. And this gives, whether or not you're an experienced Masterlete or whether or not you're just getting started again, kind of on your journey, it gives you a really nice baseline. It's not a million biomarkers, which don't matter and cost too much. And it's not an insignificant a number. So it's just the right amount. And it's super easy. You go through the app, you can schedule it online. You walk into the lab, and you get the results back within days. We help interpret those, but not just from here's what this lab is, but here's how it's impacting your health span. And that's the key difference, right? We are always looking through the lens of health span, right? So if your ferritin, your iron levels are low, how is that having an impact, right? If your glucose is high, how is that impacting your movement, or how do you need to think about changing your fuel? So that's the power of bringing the technology into it, is we can always come back and say, here's how this pertains to you. Right.
And
your journey.
And especially related to that health span, because
yes.
all of us, especially as we age, have been to the doctor, the primary care doc, who gives you 5 minutes, and you get the labs back, and you see, okay, I'm green, but how I'm kind of towards yellow on this, and what does that even mean? And so also not really understanding, when you just go get your regular labs, how that can impact health span. So I love this idea that there's going to be data that's individualized and that talks particularly about how you can maintain and improve the health span.
Yeah. And that, again, that's part of bringing it all together, and putting the right kind of technology behind it. We remember your lab results, right? We run it through that sort of filter of how do you drive health span. So it's not just, again, decontextualized. And that's the thing, again, that I think about. I want, so what?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is low, but so what? How is this impacting me and my goals and we'll be able to answer those questions.
So let's say when I do my labs and I get the results back, is it just going to kind of be dumped on me, and then I don't know what to do next? Or am I going to have some way to communicate to somebody, or to be able to compare, let's say, myself to other Masterletes and see where I'm at?
So there'll be a couple different things. So initially, to start, we're gonna make it super simple, so that when you get your lab results back, the platform's able to, again, take your health span and say, here's how these lab values fit, right? So it'll be enough for you to understand and, again, map back into your purpose and then give you some tangible things to do to either improve if they're out of range or not, right? And then the next stage will be an even more sophisticated. So this will be an iterative process. And then how do we start to connect you with the right specialists and people to help you activate that, right? And that's where our coaching program comes in. And as we continue to build the community and the ecosystem, it gets even smarter and better over time.
And I want to hear a little bit about the coaching program, because I'm sure many of us have this experience where I got a coach a few years ago and she was great, but she was in her 20s and she had no clue what I was talking about in terms of some of the things that I couldn't do as much and some of the exercises. So I'm really interested to hear how a Masterlete coach, what some of the certifications that they might have that helps folks who are over 35 and beyond.
Yeah. So our certified coaching program is built entirely around understanding the psyche and the needs of a Masterlete. So if you're a Masterlete and you're a subscriber, you get access to that curated list. So any coach that's in that directory has already gone through and said, they meet the criteria, right? They know how we think. They know how our anatomy is changing and different, right, from an aging perspective. And they know how to work with, how do we think about wearable data as an example, right? And integrating that into the Masterlete practice. So we have a list of Masterlete certified coaches, and you can go in and you can find a coach and connect with them. And you figure out the coaching relationship that you want. We're just here to sort of help facilitate that. Again, a trusted, curated source for Masterletes, so that each of these coaches are going to be the right coach for any Masterlete. And again, we'll have a spectrum. Some will be focused on running or strength or yoga or otherwise, but all of them will have that understanding that being a Masterlete is a mindset. And what does that mean?
So that you don't have to go in there and say, okay, this is my age. Do you get all these things? They've already got that.
They have that. Already passed that. Exactly.
Okay. Yep. That's fantastic. Yeah. And then you mentioned gear. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about gear. I know for me, one of the things that's been frustrating is I've been running since I was 10 and I've had multiple injuries and, run too many marathons but still love that running so much. And so a lot of it for me is, how do I get a shoe that takes all those things into account? And I've gone to the running store and had the 15-year-old kid who is just kind of like, here you go, this is the hottest shoe, and then ended up really messing up my feet. So I'm very intrigued that there might be a way to have gear that is focused more on our bodies who've been around the block a few times.
Yeah, exactly. So we call it our unbounded gear program, and it's a couple things. One is it starts with analyzing and looking at gear from a Masterlete's perspective. So you mentioned footwear. So that'll be one of the key things, right? It's the foundation of movement. Well, how does it change? What are your needs if, let's say, your force production is less, right? So you've lost a little bit of muscle because maybe you've just aged, or maybe you had injury, or maybe you had disease. Well, that changes what kind of shoes you should do. Maybe you have balance issues. So there's all these super shoes that are coming out that give you this unbelievable, time, but they're really unstable.
And if they're this thick,
what does that mean? Right. Yeah. If you have arthritis, can you actually, use the ties and other things that go with. So part of the Unbounded Gear program will be to look at the gear that's out there through that from a analytical perspective and say, we're not endorsing saying this is the best gear or this is the one you should buy, but here's how you should think about buying it. Here's where you should, have, if you have these problems or you have these concerns, probably not a good fit for you. This would be great if you're over here. So we'll do that for a whole bunch of different things. And then we've got this really exciting partnership with TC Running Co., which is one of the largest running stores in the U.S. They're here locally in the Twin Cities, so that Masterletes can go and right from reviewing the gear, then buy online from them and get a discount. And it's an exciting partnership. And really, I think central, again, back to this Masterlete journey isn't just about one thing, right? The gear that we put on our bodies that helps support us does matter. Mm-hmm. And again, nobody's paying attention. I can go buy orthotics, I can go buy braces. But what about all the stuff that an active Masterlete thinks about on a daily basis? And that's the Unbounded Gear program.
Very cool.
Including hats for the bald and beautiful.
How about The community piece, we've talked about that and how important that was for you when you were starting this journey and really thinking through your purpose. How do you envision community for Masterletes?
Yeah, so community is really central. And there are a couple of ways that we're going to help foster that. So one will be events, and these can be in person. So working to do meetups, coffees, runs, whatever, and we'll do that, across the country with Masterlete. So just creating that opportunity. The other will be virtual, and that'll help us get together, and we will bring in world experts that Masterletes will have really close access to. And so this could be things like, book club, like. Going through, like I just finished Herman Ponzer's Burn. It was transformative. We're going to go talk about that, right? And we're going to bring in experts to help us decode it and understand it. So there'll be virtual events, there'll be in-person events, right? And it would be great, in longer term, we might think about more elaborate things, but events will be a big part of it. Groups will be another part of it where you can kind of go and find your people, right? We got the Masterlete tribe, and then you've got your sub-tribes, and that'll help people start to connect around either sports or other interests, et cetera, et cetera. Again, with the mindset, we want to be inclusive on that. And then always at the backbone of it will be content. And this isn't just content for content's sake. Again, this is curated, trusted content by our experts, by advisors within Masterlete, people that are here to help us drive our health span and be better Masterletes. And so when you kind of put all three of those together, right, the ability to get together, the ability to kind of find your tribe within your tribe or your little tribes, and then this rich content set, we think that's really going to help drive community. And again, I'm excited, selfishly, I'm excited to meet all the Masterletes. That's going to be really fun. And then, one of the other things we'll do in similar to this and where we've started is tell our stories. And I think, the stories of how do you deal with adaptation? How do you think about resilience? And I think the gateway to understanding and really getting at the Masterlete mindset will be from that. And some of these will be people we know. A lot of them will be people we've never heard about. And those will be the really exciting ones.
And I think stories are so powerful. And it doesn't have to be a story from a famous person. It could be a story from somebody who just took up riding for the first time in their entire lives.
Right.
And I think that inspiration can come from hearing everyday stories.
Yes.
I think that one of the things, I've been interviewing people for over 30 years, and one of the things that I love about that is that everybody has a story, and there is something unique from everybody. And especially if we're sharing this health span, if that's something, this goal of health span is something that goes across the Masterletes, to be able to figure out and learn what somebody did that maybe was that little nugget that could change somebody else's life.
It's so powerful. And then, in organizational design theory, they talk about the T, right? So you've got people that have a broad experience and then those that have deep experience. And you think about the same thing in the role of community here, right? You've got people that I share similarities with, right? And maybe that's deeper in running, and that's kind of my background. But the beauty is getting diversity. Getting someone who has maybe never done a race in their life, running race in their life, and is focused entirely on yoga. I want to hear from that person. That enriches me, right, and how they go about it. And so I think that's a big part of community, is collecting those stories and putting them out there and letting the community, letting us sort of sift through it. And that creates an opportunity for sharing and knowledge.
And like you said, some of those stories of, why do you run? Why do you do yoga? Why do you golf? Why do you swim? And for me, I'm always feel like I have to go. So I respect the people who do yoga, and maybe one of these people will give me a nugget that's like, oh, I really should be doing
slow down
that.
a little bit.
Yeah. So I think those stories are really powerful, and I'm really excited to hear from a lot of our Masterletes on their stories.
Yeah.
How will we share those? How will we be able to get those? I know we're in the early phases, but how can we tease some folks on how we might be able to learn about their stories?
Well, first of all, you have to subscribe. I mean, that's part of it, is these will be part of the community. And once you subscribe, even at the Basecamp version, you'll get access to that, right? And we'll bring in a retinue of people, and and have that as a regular sort of feature. And we'll be doing interviews, and we'll bring in experts to do and advisors to do interviews. And it'll just be this sort of continuous feed. And you'll be able to watch them within the app. You'll be able to go back and watch them or listen to them, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be a rich content set and available to the Masterlete subscribers.
So you and I have been talking a lot about running because we're both runners.
Yeah.
But this is not just for runners.
No.
It's for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the different activities that we think we're looking forward to having people join from?
I mean, it really is kind of everything. So we mentioned, yoga, people that are walking. Again, when you just kind of think about movement writ large, and that's just part of healthspan. So again, you could be doing a pogo stick, you could be cycling, you could be climbing, everything, right? If you're out and moving or just beginning to move again, that's the criteria. And it doesn't have to be you're an expert at a particular area. Maybe you want to learn something new, but anybody who's moving their body in different ways is welcome here.
And then we also have that extra component of the data, of understanding your personalized data, so that if you are just starting, or if you're somebody who's been doing it for 50, 60 years, that there's that new component, hopefully, of information that will be able to add more specificity, right?
Totally. And, I'm a big Garmin guy. I've been wearing my Garmin pretty much religiously for, I guess since I turned 40, so about 6 years. Anyway, so part of the operating system, again, and why we do this is we can ingest that information. And as it gets fed into the system, it helps you understand your health span, right? So lab data feeds it, your sleep data feeds it. We have just this amazing ability to gather information. What's been missing is how do you interpret it? Mm-hmm. And so many people are like, here's your data. Here's your data.
What does that mean?
What
I
does
don't
it
know.
mean? I don't know what to do with that.
I don't
Great.
know what that means.
I've slept well for 3 nights. But that's where we go and take that next step. And we say, here's how this data relates to your health span. And we can see trends and say, wow, your sleep is kind of sagging a little bit here, which is probably going to start to impact your movement. You should really think about sleep. Mm-hmm. And maybe here's some content for you, et cetera, et cetera. So the technology undergirding the platform is really pretty amazing. So as Masterletes get in and we interact with it, the more data you put in, the better it gets and the more personalized it can get. It's really pretty exciting. And again, the purity of that purpose, the purity of having it focused on healthspan makes it so much easier to personalize it.
We've been talking a lot about sleep and purpose and community and movement. What are the pillars that a Masterlete's going to be able to go in and dive deep on?
Yeah, so there's so we look at purpose as the primary, and again, and that can evolve. Like everybody's changes, but the idea is know what you're optimizing for. That's what Howard would say, or have a goal or have a purpose. So that's one big. Second is movement. We talked a lot about that. The third is strength. Right.
Strength. That's such a big one. I forgot about strength.
It's a powerful one, right?
And that's a powerful, yes. And that's one that I feel like I keep hearing about and reading about so much as, okay, like as a postmenopausal 50-something-year-old woman, I am supposed to do strength. And reading about, okay, you have to do strength more than cardio, but I'm still looking for that curated information on what that means. And I'll be able to go find that.
Yes, absolutely. And deep dive in whether or not, again, it's, for postmenopausal women or men, or whether or not you're going to be focused in a particular sport or area, right? Some of this will be general knowledge, some will be more specialized, but the ability to come in and say, like, here's how to think about strength as you age, right? How is it different at 50 versus when you're 75? Well, then how does that impact if you're trying to drive strength? Well, what about protein? Mm-hmm. How does that then impact the fuel? And so, again, bringing these all together in support of your health span is a really key part. And the only way to do that reliably and at scale is through technology. There just isn't in a better way. And so, that's why we bring all those together. So we've got strength out there. Social is a really big part of it too. And again, the community, again, as an introvert, like I tend to be okay running alone, but I still need it. And it's everybody needs it in different doses. And again, the platform and the experience is designed to help you, sort of self-select, but it's also smart enough to be able to say, like, hey, John, maybe you should think about attending an event. seems like you might have been a little bit out of it. So socialization is another big part. Fuel or sort of nutrition is also very key, and we'll be going a lot deeper on that. That'll be one of the areas where we'll rapidly improve. But how do you think about actively fueling your body as it ages? And that's, the metabolic functions change in such remarkable ways, and we have such a better understanding of it than we did even 5-10 years ago. So those are things that will be accessible in the content, in the platform, in the community, and having those conversations is really going to be, I think, pretty transformative. And the last one is sleep. And, if you haven't read Why We Sleep, you should read it. Well, that'll be another good book club sort of review that we do out there. But again, tracking sleep patterns, we have so much data available about it, and it is so central. And especially as you think about recovery as we get older, regardless of what you're doing, and sleep is very central to that. So when you unpack it, those are the pillars. That's kind of the foundation. And then we'll throw in a bunch of other things because like we talk a lot about this, like we want to have fun too. Like we want to create joy and the experience. And there are so many negative sides that people talk about in aging and loss of function, but we really want to be able to say like, you know what? Like we can have fun too.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about pillars, but we'll have some fun and we'll throw in some dad jokes and whatever.
Because we don't want to talk about our protein intake all day long. We want to also figure out
right.
How do you have fun? How do you find that purpose? And part of what I think is so fantastic about movement is how fun it is and how there's so many parts about it that can just make you have a better day.
Yeah.
So that piece of it. So we'll be able to dive into all those pillars and also figure out how to do it with purpose and joy and fun.
Yep.
What is your biggest vision for Masterlete?
I mean, we want to extend the health span of humanity. I mean, that's a pretty big, one. And I think it starts with us. And kind of where we went with the unbounded logo. It starts by taking the work that we're doing today as Masterletes and extending that and bringing us together and then making it accessible to the next generation. And I think if we can do that, we have a fighting chance to really model out how humanity continues to actively age. That's the big win.
And what are you most excited about?
I'm most excited to meet so many Masterletes. Like, honestly, even as an introvert, I'm excited for that.
That's a big step. An introvert who's excited to meet people. I love that.
Yeah,
Well, it has been fantastic to chat about Masterlete. I'm so excited for the future and to get this out there and to meet all these people and to have everybody be able to figure out how they can increase their health span and their purpose. So thanks so much.
You bet. Thanks.